Hi, so today we're going to talk about succulents, how and when to water, and things you need to avoid, and early signs that will show you that your succulent isn't doing well. So before we start anything, what is a succulent? A succulent is a plant that holds water because of its fleshy leaves. That's where it gets the name succulent. So all these plants here on this table are desert plants, so that means they need a lot of sunlight and they need little water. So watering a succulent, before you water your succulent, the first thing you need to do is to confirm that the soil is dry. So how do you confirm the soil is dry? You use a stick. So you insert a stick in the soil. If the soil comes out with mud, that means the soil is moist, so you don't need to water it. So this is the other side of the stick, which is dry. So if the soil doesn't come out with mud, that means the soil is dry. That means you need to water your soil. So you need to do that for all your succulents. If you don't have your stick at the moment, what you do, you use your finger, touch the topsoil. If the topsoil feels dry and your finger can't go through, that means that the soil is dry, so you need to water it. Succulent like this, it's very evident from your eyes that the soil is wet, but if it's not, just feel the soil and there's mud on your finger, so that means no watering. So ideally, when and how you should water your succulents. Watering any plant in your house depends on the temperatures in your house. So if your house has really high temperatures, you would water your succulent once a week. But if the temperatures in your house are low, you go up to 2 weeks. So the amount of water you need for your succulent. So we'll start with the smallest succulent that I have. This succulent here in a shell. So this, I don't water it with water, but you can use a tablespoon, 1 tablespoon, and water it like that. But me, what I do is I use a spray bottle. I spray it once a week, and that's enough. So this is also an air plant, which I would also categorize as a succulent because it doesn't need a lot of watering, and this also just needs misting, but this is misted once a week. So as we're moving to bigger plants, what I would recommend is the amount of water you're using for your succulent should be two times smaller than the size of your pot. So a pot like this, I would need this amount of water to water the succulent for a week. So it is important to remember that you always need to confirm that the soil is dry before you water. You shouldn't just say, I'll water my succulent once a week, and then once a week comes and then your soil isn't dry. So this is a short glass that's 7 tablespoons. So I would water this directly. My soil should water around your plant. So that's excess water coming out, as you can see. So that's enough for the plant. So for this amount of succulent, a succulent that comes in a pot with no drainage hole, you need to be really careful with something like this. So what I would recommend is, for something like this, always use a tablespoon. So you've seen this needs a short glass of water, which is 7 tablespoons. So for this, you'll only need 4 tablespoons. So 4 times, yeah. So another thing that you need to remember about succulents is succulents love bright light. So if you end up putting your succulent in a spot that does not have light, what will happen is the succulent will start stretching, looking for the sun, and it will stretch by opening its leaves like this and then trying to elongate. So what will happen is, if you see your succulent is elongating, just take it outside. This is a succulent that's stretched, then with time it got babies around. So it might be a good thing for you if you want your succulent to go up, then get babies around. That's what I did with this. The same thing with this succulent here. It was also elongating, then it started getting babies around after I took it outside. So I only stretch my succulents when I'm trying to get a fuller look. But if you only have a really small succulent like this, and then it ends up stretching, it will take really long for it to start getting babies around, and I wouldn't recommend putting a succulent in a place that has no light. So always put them near a window, and if you're going to put it inside your house, like as a table plant, take it outside, even if it's 2 times in a week, ipate. So another thing we need to talk about is how to spot overwatering of the succulent. So what you do is the lower leaves will start turning yellow, like this. So that means that your succulent is sitting in water. If you're suspecting your succulent is sitting in water, the first thing I would advise is to put it in the sun. If the soil doesn't dry out within the first day, just pull out the whole succulent from the soil. Pull it out like that. So this is a succulent that's really held in the soil, so that's why. So just pull out your whole succulent from the soil and let the soil dry out, and then put it back in the pot. It's not hard, provided the roots are inside midway half the soil. Don't put the roots, like when you're replanting, don't put the roots like this level, because that will just interfere with its growth. So I think that's basically everything. I hope you've learned something about your succulent. Oh yeah, something else I forgot to mention. If you have a colorful succulent like this, please don't even dare put it anywhere away from the window, even if you're going to be putting it outside for light, because what will happen is really colorful succulents tend to lose their colors when they're away from the sun. So if you have a purple succulent and then you start putting it like inside the house or like in your bathroom where the light isn't so much, the succulent will start turning green like this, and you don't want that. So ideally, now let's talk about cactuses. So a cactus would not need water once a week like the other fleshy ones, especially this two. This is a zebra plant Haworthia, and this is a cactus. So cactuses, when they're rotting, they also turn yellow. Yellowing of most of the plants is always a sign of overwatering. So your cactus would need watering once a month. That's what I do to my cactuses. All my cactuses are watered once a month with the level of water I've showed you. So something like this, obviously, this spot is a bit large, so I would need 3 of these shot glasses. Yeah. So let's talk about misting. So if your succulent ends up outgrowing your pot like this, that's outgrown the pot, and you don't want to report it because you like the look, what you do is just get a spray bottle and then spray between the leaves. Where 2 leaves are, the lower leaves, there's an air space that leads directly to the soil. So just spray like that around. Continuous spray, that's enough. But don't overspray. Just doing like 7 sprays of this, and that's enough for your succulent. So what will happen is, if it continues outgrowing your pot, you can report it or you can leave it. Me, I prefer leaving my succulent or keeping it away from the light so that it can start stretching, like what happened to this guy here. So what you would do, if you want this to start going up, you can put it away from the light so it can start stretching up. When it's stretching up, now you'll have more space at the base of the pot, then watering will be easy, then they can start removing babies. So when this succulent starts stretching, be sure to cut off the lower leaves, because where you've removed the lower leaves, new plants will grow like this. So I hope you've learned something about succulents today. If you have questions, please just ask me either in my DMs or in the comment section, and we'll tackle that. So for people who, there's a common question that's asked about what do I do when my succulent has rotted. Like if the succulent rots, that's it. If your succulent rots, because you know what happens is it turns yellow first, and then after turning yellow, it turns black. Then after it turns black, the plant is dead. So when you start noticing, make sure you spot the early signs. If you see your succulent is turning yellow, don't just ignore it till the end. When you see the leaves, the lower leaves have started turning yellow, please just take that succulent to the sun. If your succulent is sitting in water in a week, always fill the soil. always fill the soil of your succulent. You know, sometimes you might end up overwatering your succulents, especially succulents that are not in pots that have drainage hole that remove excess water. If you end up overwatering your succulents, for example, if you have a pot with no drainage hole like this, and then you see these two are around the same size, this isn't even smaller, then you water this whole thing here. So this is around 200 ml, and this pot is around 250. So you see what I mean? This is overwatering a succulent. A succulent that doesn't have anywhere to release the excess water, so the water just sits at the top. Especially if you end up putting those white rocks on top of your soil, it's very hard for you to be able to tell if you've overwatered your succulent. So what you do is what I've told you. You stick with you put a stick. I can't see my stick, so just touch the water. If you feel the soil is still wet even after 3 days, please just take that succulent outside to dry. And if those 3 days it's not yet dried, within 24 hours, just pluck it off the pot. Please don't be shy to uproot your plant, because at least it has a high chance of surviving, because succulents are desert plants. They can even go up to a week without being in soil and they'd survive, but they can't go up to a week in water, soaking in water, because their roots will suffocate and the whole plant will rot. So for something like this, which I've already flooded with water, I would obviously drain out the water. After draining out the water, I'm going to leave it in the sun for 24 hours. If the soil isn't completely dry within 24 hours, I'm going to uproot this plant to prevent rotting. So yeah, that's it, and thanks for watching. Bye.